The first sign came not as a roar of conquest, but as silence. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus station, humanity's most advanced deep space installation, watching the stars disappear one by one. The Outer Rim colonies had gone dark 3 months ago, not destroyed, simply absent. Their quantum beacons had winked out of existence, as if they had never been. "Another one," whispered Dr. Marcus Chin, the station's chief astrophysicist, as he pointed to where Kepler 442 had shone just hours before. Now there was only the void, a perfect sphere of absolute darkness where an entire solar system had once flourished. Elena's augmented retina displayed the tactical readout in crisp blue holographics. 732 systems had vanished in the past year. Not destroyed, consumed. The difference was becoming horrifyingly clear. "Any word from the inner colonies?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Nothing from Titan Base in 6 hours. Mars colony went silent 20 minutes ago." Marcus's voice carried the weight of a man watching his species' extinction in real time. "The pattern's accelerating." Elena had seen the classified reports. The hegemony, that was what the xenobiologists had named them, though no human had ever seen one and lived to report it. They moved through the galaxy like a plague of entropy, consuming not just matter and energy, but the very fabric of space-time itself. Planets, stars, entire solar systems folded into dimensions that human mathematics couldn't describe. The first encounters had been with the Andromeda refugees, if they could be called that. Beings of pure energy and fractured memories, they had materialized at the edge of human space 3 years ago, their consciousness barely coherent enough to warn of what was coming. The hegemony had consumed 97 galaxies, they claimed, each one fed to entities that existed outside conventional reality. "Ma'am," came a voice from behind her. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the station's communications officer, approached with the measured gait of someone delivering terrible news. "We've received a priority Alpha transmission from Earth." Elena didn't need to ask. She had been expecting this moment since the first outer colonies went dark. "Exodus Protocol?" "Confirmed. All remaining human populations are to abandon the galaxy immediately. The hegemony advanced scouts have been detected at the galactic core. We have 18 hours. 18 hours to abandon 60,000 years of human civilization." Elena felt the weight of those millennia pressing down on her shoulders. From the first cave paintings to the colonization of distant stars, from the development of faster-than-light travel to the establishment of the Galactic Human Federation, all of it about to become cosmic dust. "How many ships?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "The Exodus fleet consists of 12,000 vessels of various classes. They can carry approximately 47 million people." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "Current human population across all colonies was 800 million. Less than 6%. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the numbers burn themselves into her consciousness. The greatest evacuation in human history would still leave over 750 million people to face whatever the hegemony did to consumed worlds. "The volunteers?" Elena asked. 12 million have already registered for the rear guard. They'll maintain the quantum beacons as long as possible, by time for the fleet to reach minimum safe distance. The rear guard, a euphemism for a suicide mission. Brave souls who would remain behind to ensure the Exodus fleet could escape to intergalactic space before the hegemony's influence made faster-than-light travel impossible. Elena had considered volunteering herself, but her skills were deemed too valuable for the journey ahead. "Where are we going?" she asked, though she knew this answer too. "The Magellanic Clouds. The Large Magellanic Cloud has been identified as our best hope for establishing a new civilization. Far enough away to be safe from the hegemony's immediate attention, close enough to reach with our current technology. 200,000 light-years from home." Elena had studied the preliminary surveys. The Large Magellanic Cloud was a dwarf galaxy, rough and wild, with stellar formations still actively occurring. It would be like humanity's ancestors leaving a comfortable city to homestead on an untamed frontier, except the city was about to be consumed by cosmic horrors. "I want a full inventory of our cultural archives," Elena said suddenly. Everything we're taking with us. Art, music, literature, scientific knowledge, historical records, all of it. Ma'am? If we're going to be the last humans in the universe, we need to preserve what we were. Not just our genetics, but our souls. Elena turned back to the viewport, where another star system was beginning to dim. How long until the hegemony reaches Sol? Based on their current rate of advancement, 14 days. 14 days until Earth died. Elena thought of the planet she had left 20 years ago to join the Deep Space Exploration Corps. Blue oceans, green forests, the aurora borealis dancing across polar skies. The birthplace of human consciousness, about to be fed to beings that existed beyond the comprehension of any terrestrial mind. Signal the fleet, Elena said. We launch in 6 hours. But the evacuation isn't. 6 hours, Lieutenant. Every minute we delay is a minute the hegemony gains. We leave with whoever makes it aboard, and we pray it's enough. Elena remained at the viewport as the station transformed into a hive of desperate activity around her. Transport ships docked and departed in a constant stream, each one carrying precious human cargo away from the only galaxy humanity had ever known. She watched the stars disappear one by one, each vanishing point representing billions of years of cosmic evolution snuffed out to feed incomprehensible appetites. Her personal communicator chimed. A message from her sister on Earth. Elena, we didn't make the evacuation list. David and I are taking the kids to the mountains, going to watch the sunrise one last time. We love you. Make sure humanity remembers us. Elena closed her eyes and let the tears come. They were the last tears she would shed for the next 5 years. The Exodus fleet stretched across 30,000 kilometers of space, a metallic river of humanity's hopes and dreams fleeing toward the edge of forever. Elena stood on the bridge of the Aspiration, the fleet's flagship, watching the tactical display track their progress. 12,000 ships, everything from massive colony vessels carrying tens of thousands to small family craft that had been pressed into service. Quantum tunnel established, reported Navigation Officer Torres. All ships are holding formation. Estimated time to Magellanic Cloud, 4 years 7 months. 4.5 years in the void between galaxies. Elena had run the calculations herself. It would be the longest journey in human history, crossing a space so vast that radio signals would take 200,000 years to traverse it. They would be alone with their thoughts and each other, carrying the weight of an entire species' survival. Status report from the rear guard? They're holding position at the galactic perimeter. The hegemony has consumed 70% of the galaxy's mass. Earth? Torres paused, consulting his readings. Earth went dark 6 hours ago. Elena felt something break inside her chest. Earth, the cradle of human civilization, the blue marble that had nurtured humanity from its first steps out of Africa to its leap to the stars, was gone. Not destroyed, but consumed, processed into something that human minds couldn't grasp. What about the time dilation effects? She asked, forcing herself to focus on the technical details. The journey to the Magellanic Cloud would be conducted at significant fractions of light speed, which meant time would pass differently for the fleet than for the rest of the universe. Minimal. We'll arrive approximately 7 years after departure from the perspective of external observers. The hegemony's expansion rate suggests they'll have consumed the entire galaxy within 2 years. 2 years. Elena tried to imagine what that meant, an entire galaxy, with its hundreds of billions of stars and untold numbers of planets, processed into exotic matter and energy to feed beings that existed outside normal space-time. The Andromeda refugees had tried to explain it, but their language was geometry and their thoughts were mathematics that hurt to contemplate. Fleet Composition Report? Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, now serving as Elena's executive officer, brought up the holographic display. 12,000 ships total. 800 heavy colony vessels, each carrying between 30 and 50,000 people. 2,000 medium transports with 5 to 15,000 capacity. The remaining 9,000 are smaller vessels, family ships, research stations, even some converted mining platforms. Elena studied the data. Total population? 47,237,812, Sarah said. Plus approximately 2 million in suspended animation for the critical specializations we couldn't lose. 47 million. Elena tried to wrap her mind around the number. It was more people than had ever been gathered in one place in human history, yet it represented less than 6% of humanity's peak population. They were the remnant, the survivors, the seed from which human civilization might somehow grow again. What about genetic diversity? Elena asked. It was a question that haunted her. Could such a small population sustain itself across the centuries it would take to establish a new civilization? Dr. Patel's team has run the projections. We have sufficient genetic diversity to maintain a viable population, but it will require careful management. The genetic archives contain DNA samples from over 10 million individuals, plus the complete genome sequences of all major Earth species. Elena nodded. They had become Noah's Ark, fleeing not a flood but a cosmic predator. And the cultural archives? 17 exabytes of human knowledge, art, and culture. Every book, every song, every painting, every scientific discovery. If we're going to be the last humans, we'll remember what we were. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Elena looked out at the starscape, but they were already far enough from the galactic plane that the familiar constellations were distorted beyond recognition. Behind them, the Milky Way was a spiral of light slowly fading as they gained distance. Ahead lay the void, 200,000 light-years of emptiness punctuated only by the occasional wandering star. "Commander," came a voice from the communications station. "We're receiving final transmissions from the rear guard." Elena's heart clenched. The rear guard, 12 million volunteers who had stayed behind to maintain the quantum beacons and buy time for the fleet's escape. They had known from the beginning that it was a one-way mission. "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, almost serene. "This is Admiral Jackson broadcasting from the rear guard command vessel Defiance. The hegemony has reached the galactic perimeter. We can see them now. Reality itself is bending around them. It's actually beautiful in a way that makes your mind hurt." Elena gripped the edge of the command console. Admiral Jackson had been her mentor at the Academy, a man who had dedicated his life to protecting humanity. Now he was facing cosmic horror with the same steady courage he had shown commanding fleet exercises. "The quantum beacons are holding. You have a clear path to the Magellanic Cloud. We'll maintain position until the last possible moment." A pause, filled with the static of space itself beginning to warp. "Tell them we remembered who we were. Tell them we stood guard." The transmission cut to static, then to a sound that wasn't quite sound, something that bypassed the ears and spoke directly to the primal parts of the brain that remembered when humans were prey animals hiding from predators in the African night. "That's it," Torres said quietly. "The quantum beacons are gone. We're on our own." Elena looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of 47 million lives pressing down on her. They were alone now, truly alone, sailing through the void toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the Milky Way was becoming just another spiral of light in the cosmic dark. "Fleet-wide communication," she said. "All ships, all crews, all passengers." The communications officer nodded. "You're connected, Commander." Elena took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. How do you address the last remnant of human civilization? How do you give hope to people who have lost everything? "Citizens of the Exodus Fleet," she began, her voice carrying across 47 million communicators in 12,000 ships. "We are the children of Earth, the heirs of 10,000 generations of human dreams and struggles. Today, we are also refugees, fleeing our home to preserve what we are and what we might become." She paused, looking out at the fleet arrayed around the aspiration. "We carry with us the accumulated wisdom of our species, every story ever told, every song ever sung, every scientific discovery ever made. We carry the DNA of our world, from the smallest bacteria to the largest whales. We carry the memory of those who could not come with us, and the hope of those yet to be born." Elena's voice grew stronger. "The journey ahead will be long and difficult. We will face challenges no human has ever faced. We will cross the void between galaxies, establish new homes on alien worlds, and build a civilization from the foundations up. But we will do it together, as one people, one species, one family. She looked directly into the camera, knowing that millions of eyes were watching her. We are no longer citizens of the Milky Way. We are citizens of the universe itself. We are the wanderers, the explorers, the survivors. We are humanity, and we endure. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Elena turned back to the viewport, watching the Milky Way shrink behind them. It was no longer their home, it was their past. Ahead lay the Magellanic Cloud, a dwarf galaxy of possibilities and perils. Course laid in and verified, Torres reported. 4 years, 7 months to our new home. Then let's go see what's waiting for us, Elena said. The Exodus fleet sailed on through the cosmic night, carrying the last flame of human civilization toward the distant stars of the Magellanic Cloud. Behind them, the Milky Way slowly faded, its light becoming just another point in the vast darkness of intergalactic space. 2 years into the journey, Elena stood in the observation lounge of the Aspiration, watching the stars. Or rather, watching the space between stars. The Milky Way had faded to a distant spiral of light behind them, while the Magellanic Cloud ahead remained a fuzzy patch of possibility. They were suspended in the void, travelers in the deepest ocean of space. Coffee? Dr. Marcus Chin approached with 2 steaming cups. The physicist had aged considerably during the journey, his hair now completely white, his face lined with the stress of calculating impossible problems. Thanks. Elena accepted the cup gratefully. Real coffee was a luxury now. They had managed to preserve several thousand tons of beans in the colony's ships, but every cup was precious. How are our passengers holding up? Better than expected, honestly. The psychologists were worried about the isolation, the sense of being lost in the void. But humans are adaptable. We've created communities within the fleet, established trade between ships, even started new traditions. Elena nodded. She had seen the reports. Children born during the journey were being called void-born, the first generation of humans to have no memory of a galaxy as home. They were growing up in the ships, learning to navigate by the distant lights of other galaxies, playing games that involved the vast scales of intergalactic space. Any word from the Harmony? She asked. Marcus's expression darkened. They're still out there. The engine failure left them stranded about 30 light-years behind the main fleet. They've managed to get partial thrust restored, but they won't reach the Magellanic Cloud for another 3 years. Elena felt the familiar weight of command decisions. The Harmony carried 12,000 people, including some of humanity's most skilled geneticists and xenobiologists. They had suffered a catastrophic engine failure 8 months ago, and the fleet faced a terrible choice: stop and risk the entire exodus, or continue and leave them behind. The decision had been made by majority vote of the ship commanders. They would continue. The Harmony would follow when they could. Are we still picking up their transmissions? Yes, but they're getting faint. The distance is stretching the quantum communicators to their limits. Marcus sipped his coffee. They're maintaining morale. Started a breeding program to ensure genetic diversity. They know they might be on their own. Elena stared out at the void. 47 million people had left the Milky Way. 12,000 were now lost in the darkness between galaxies, and there was nothing she could do about it. Command was a series of impossible decisions, each one carrying the weight of lives that couldn't be saved. What about the Cultural Preservation Project? Ahead of schedule. We've transcribed over 90% of human literature into the quantum archives. The art preservation teams have created holographic recreations of the greatest works, the Sistine Chapel, the Mona Lisa, the Taj Mahal. The musicians have been composing new pieces for the journey. They're calling it void music, compositions that capture the experience of traveling between galaxies. Elena smiled despite herself. Leave it to humans to create art while fleeing across the universe. It's what we do. We make meaning from chaos, beauty from despair. Marcus gestured toward the viewport. Look at us, 47 million people suspended in nothingness, traveling toward a galaxy we've never seen, and we're composing symphonies. A soft chime from the bridge interrupted them. Commander Vasquez to the bridge. Priority communication from the advanced scouts. Elena set down her coffee and made her way to the bridge. The advanced scouts were a small flotilla of fast ships that had been sent ahead to begin preliminary surveys of the Magellanic Cloud. They had been operating at the edge of communication range for months. "What do we have?" she asked as she took her position at the command console. "Long-range sensor data from the Pathfinder," reported Lieutenant Torres. "They've identified 17 potentially habitable worlds in the target region. 3 are Earth-like, 8 are marginal but terraformable, and 6 require significant environmental modification." Elena studied the data streaming across the tactical display. The large Magellanic Cloud was a young, active galaxy with ongoing star formation. The worlds they were seeing were rough and wild, many still in the process of geological development. It would be like humanity's ancestors leaving a comfortable European city to homestead in the American frontier, except the journey had taken years instead of months. Any signs of indigenous life? Abundant. The Pathfinder has detected complex ecosystems on 14 of the 17 worlds. Nothing that appears to be technological civilization, but definitely advanced biological development. Elena felt a mix of relief and concern. Relief that they wouldn't be settling on dead worlds, concern about the ethical implications of colonizing planets that already had complex life. Humanity had learned hard lessons about environmental destruction during its expansion through the Milky Way. Recommendations from the xenobiology team? Dr. Patel suggests establishing initial colonies on the 3 Earth-like worlds while conducting careful studies of the existing ecosystems. We have the technology to coexist with indigenous life forms, but it will require careful planning. What about the other ships? How is the fleet holding up? Sarah Kim brought up the status display. We've lost 6 ships to various mechanical failures. The Endeavour suffered a complete life support failure 3 months ago. We managed to evacuate most of the crew, but we lost about 800 people. The New Horizons had a reactor containment breach last week. They're limping along on backup power. Elena closed her eyes. They had started with 12,000 ships. Now they were down to just under 11,000, with several more operating on emergency systems. The journey between galaxies was taking its toll on both human and machine. Morale? Surprisingly good. The birth rate has actually increased during the journey. We have about 12,000 children born during the crossing, plus another 8,000 on the way. The sociologists think it's an instinctive response to existential threat, the species responding to near extinction by reproducing. Elena nodded. Life finds a way, even in the void between galaxies. What about the generational divide? Are we seeing conflicts between the Earthborn and the Voidborn? Some tension, Sarah admitted. The Earthborn mourn for what we lost. The Voidborn don't understand what they're supposed to be mourning. But the children are adapting better than anyone expected. They're already thinking about the Magellanic Cloud as home. That's good, Elena said. They're going to be the ones who actually build our new civilization. A new priority communication chimed through the bridge systems. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Pathfinder. They're reporting something unusual. Elena felt her stomach tighten. In their situation, unusual was rarely good news. Put it through. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the speakers, distorted by the vast distance. Commander Vasquez, this is Pathfinder. We've discovered something you need to see. We're detecting artificial structures on the 4th planet of the Kepler 442 system. They appear to be ruins. Elena felt the bridge go silent around her. Ruins meant they wouldn't be alone in the Magellanic Cloud. But ruins also meant that whoever had built them was gone. Can you describe these structures? They're massive, Commander. Kilometers in scale. The architecture is alien, but there are mathematical patterns that suggest intelligence. And Commander, based on the radiological decay patterns, these structures are old. Very old. We're talking about a civilization that fell at least 100,000 years ago. Elena stared at the tactical display, her mind racing. A dead civilization in their target galaxy. The implications were staggering. Had they faced something like the hegemony? Had they fled to other galaxies? Or had they simply died out naturally? Any signs of what happened to them? Negative. The structures show no signs of warfare or natural disaster. They just stopped. As if the entire civilization simply walked away one day. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Continue your survey, Captain. But be careful. We don't know what we're walking into. Understood. Pathfinder out. The bridge remained silent for a long moment. Elena looked out at the Magellanic Cloud, no longer seeing a refuge, but a mystery. What had happened to the civilization that had built those structures? And more importantly, could it happen to humanity? Commander, Torres said quietly, we're 2 years from arrival. Should we consider changing course? Elena thought about the question. Behind them lay the consumed remains of the Milky Way, ahead lay a galaxy with the ruins of a dead civilization. There was nowhere else to go. No, she said finally. We're committed. Whatever happened to them, we'll learn from it. We'll do better. But as she looked out at the stars, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were sailing towards something far more complex than a simple refuge. The Magellanic Cloud held secrets, and humanity was about to discover what had happened to the last group of refugees who had sought shelter there. The large Magellanic Cloud resolved from a distant smudge of light into a galaxy of wonders as the Exodus fleet approached its destination. Elena stood on the observation deck of the Aspiration, watching new constellations take shape before her eyes. The galaxy was young and wild, with brilliant blue-white stars and vast nebulae painting the cosmic canvas in colors that Earth's sky had never known. It's beautiful, whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, now serving as Elena's chief science officer. Look at those star-forming regions. The whole galaxy is alive with creation. Elena nodded, though her mind was focused on the tactical challenges ahead. The advanced scouts had identified their target system, a young star with 7 planets, 3 of which showed signs of being habitable. They had also mapped out the ruins that Captain Morrison had discovered, and the implications were troubling. Fleet status? Elena asked. 10,736 ships operational. We've lost another 264 vessels during the final approach. The Perseverance suffered a complete navigation system failure and had to be abandoned. The Unity lost structural integrity during the deceleration phase. Sarah's voice carried the weight of every loss. Total population now stands at 46,112,000. Nearly 1 million people lost during the journey. Elena felt each death as a personal failure, though she knew rationally that the survival rate was actually better than the projections had suggested. Crossing the void between galaxies was beyond anything humans had ever attempted. The fact that they had succeeded at all was a miracle. And the children? 15,000 born during the crossing. The void-born are different. They process spatial relationships differently, show enhanced mathematical abilities, and seem to have an intuitive understanding of large-scale structures. The psychologists think growing up in intergalactic space has affected their cognitive development. Elena wasn't surprised. Evolution worked on all timescales, and the human brain was remarkably adaptable. The Void-born were already becoming something new, the first generation of truly galactic humans. Approach to the primary system? 6 days until orbital insertion. The Pathfinder has confirmed 3 habitable worlds. Beta Magellani Prime is Earth-like but with higher gravity and a methane-rich atmosphere. Beta Magellani 2 is oceanic with small continents. Beta Magellani 3 is desert but with vast underground water reserves. Elena studied the tactical display. And the ruins? Located on Beta Magellani Prime. The structures are extensive. We're talking about a civilization that built on a scale that makes human cities look like villages. And Commander, we've found something else. Elena felt her pulse quicken. What? The ruins aren't just empty. They're preserved. As if whoever built them intended for someone to find them. The Pathfinder has detected what appears to be a massive data storage facility at the center of the largest structure. It's still active. A message from a dead civilization. Elena felt the weight of cosmic history settling on her shoulders. Any indication of what happened to them? None. The structures show no signs of warfare, disease, or natural disaster. The builders simply left. But they left everything behind, including what appears to be a complete record of their civilization. Elena stared out at the approaching galaxy. Humanity was about to encounter the legacy of another species that had fled to the Magellanic Cloud. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Priority transmission from the fleet, came the voice of Lieutenant Torres. We're receiving a broadcast from the colony ships. They're requesting guidance on planetary settlement protocols. Elena nodded. The moment had come. After 4.5 years of travel, humanity was about to establish its first foothold in a new galaxy. Put me through to the fleet. The communications officer nodded. You're connected, Commander. Elena took a deep breath, looking out at the 46 million people scattered across nearly 11,000 ships. They were no longer refugees. They were pioneers, about to plant the seeds of a new human civilization. Citizens of the Exodus Fleet, she began, her voice carrying across the vast armada. We have arrived at our destination. The large Magellanic Cloud spreads before us, a galaxy of young stars and new possibilities. We are about to become the first humans to establish a permanent presence in another galaxy. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But we are not the first refugees to seek shelter here. We have discovered evidence of another civilization, one that arrived long before us and left behind both mysteries and gifts. We will approach their legacy with respect and caution, learning from their example while forging our own path. Elena gestured toward the viewports, where the galaxy's spiral arms were becoming visible. The world we will settle first has been designated New Terra. It is Earth-like but with its own unique characteristics. We will establish our primary colonies there while exploring the other worlds in this system. This is not just a new home, it is a new beginning. Her voice grew stronger. We are no longer the species that fled the Milky Way. We are the explorers of the Magellanic Cloud, the builders of a new human civilization. Our children will grow up under alien suns, our grandchildren will explore worlds we cannot imagine, and our great-grandchildren will carry human consciousness to the furthest reaches of this galaxy. Elena looked directly into the camera. We have crossed the void between galaxies. We have carried the flame of human civilization through the deepest darkness. Now we light new fires under new stars. Welcome to the Magellanic Cloud. Welcome to our new home. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Elena turned back to the viewport, watching the galaxy resolve into individual stars and nebulae. Somewhere in that stellar wilderness, humanity would build new cities, discover new truths, and perhaps encounter new forms of life. Fleet disposition? She asked. The colony's ships are forming up for planetary approach. First wave will establish landing sites and basic infrastructure. Second wave will begin the agricultural and industrial development. Third wave will establish the research stations and cultural centers. Elena nodded. It was a plan they had refined during the long journey, a careful, methodical approach to establishing a sustainable human presence. They had learned from the mistakes of the past, when human expansion had too often resulted in environmental destruction and social conflict. And the ruins? Scientific teams are preparing for the first archaeological expedition. Dr. Patel is leading a joint team of xenobiologists, archaeologists, and linguists. They'll establish a research station at a safe distance and begin the process of deciphering whatever the previous inhabitants left behind. Elena felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The ruins represented both an opportunity and a warning. Another species had found refuge in the Magellanic Cloud and had apparently thrived here for millennia. But they were gone now, leaving behind only their monuments and mysteries. 6 days until planetfall, she said. Make sure all department heads are ready. We're about to make history. As the fleet approached the system that would become humanity's new home, Elena remained at the viewport, watching the alien constellations take shape. Behind them, the Milky Way was invisible, consumed by the hegemony or lost in the cosmic distance. Ahead lay the unknown, new worlds, new challenges, and the legacy of a civilization that had walked this path before them. The Exodus fleet sailed on toward New Terra, carrying the hopes and dreams of humanity into the spiral arms of the Magellanic Cloud. They were no longer refugees. They were pioneers, about to plant the seeds of a new chapter in the human story. The first human footsteps on New Terra left prints in soil that had never known the touch of terrestrial life. Elena stood on the observation platform of the primary landing site, watching as thousands of colonists emerged from the transport shuttles to breathe air that had been filtered and processed by alien ecosystems for millions of years. New Terra was beautiful in a way that was both familiar and utterly strange. The sky was a deeper blue than Earth's, tinged with purple from the young star's energetic output. 3 small moons hung in the daytime sky, their gravitational dance creating complex tidal patterns in the planet's vast oceans. The vegetation was predominantly silver and gold, evolved to process the star's intense radiation, creating landscapes that looked like metallic forests under the alien sun. Atmospheric composition is stable, reported Dr. Marcus Chin, now serving as the planetary science coordinator. 22% oxygen, 75% nitrogen, trace gases compatible with human physiology. The indigenous plants are actually improving the air quality. They're processing carbon dioxide more efficiently than Earth's forests. Elena nodded, watching as the first permanent structures began to take shape. The colony ships had carried prefabricated buildings designed to be assembled rapidly, but the real work of establishing a human presence would take years. They weren't just building a settlement, they were creating the foundation for a new branch of human civilization. Population distribution? 15 million on New Terra, 10 million remaining in orbital habitats, 21 million distributed across the other worlds in the system. The Aspiration and the other command ships are maintaining position as orbital coordination centers. Elena studied the tactical display showing the deployment patterns. It was a careful balance. Enough concentration to establish viable communities, enough distribution to ensure survival if any single colony failed. The lessons of the Milky Way evacuation had been learned well. Any contact with indigenous life? Extensive, but peaceful. The native species seemed to be curious about us but not aggressive. We've identified several hundred species of varying complexity, from simple plant analogues to what appear to be quite sophisticated social organisms. The xenobiology teams are working on establishing communication protocols. Elena felt a surge of hope. One of humanity's greatest fears had been that they would find the Magellanic Cloud inhabited by hostile species. Instead, they were discovering a galaxy teeming with life that seemed remarkably tolerant of newcomers. And the ruins? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. That's where things get interesting. The archaeological teams have made contact with the data storage facility. It's not just active, it's been waiting for us. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Waiting for us? The system activated when our ships entered the system. It's been broadcasting a signal that our computers can interpret. The message is simple: welcome, younger siblings. We have been expecting you. Elena stared at the display, trying to process the implications. They knew we were coming? It appears so. The data storage facility contains what appears to be a complete record of their civilization, including references to those who would come after and the refugees from the spiral arms. Commander, I think they were refugees too. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. From what? We don't know yet. The translation protocols are still being developed. But the preliminary analysis suggests they fled their home galaxy approximately 100,000 years ago, established a thriving civilization here, then transcended. Transcended? That's the best translation we have. They didn't die out or flee again, they appear to have evolved beyond physical existence. The data suggests they became beings of pure consciousness, integrated with the quantum structure of the galaxy itself. Elena tried to wrap her mind around the concept. A civilization that had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies, becoming one with the cosmos itself. It was both inspiring and terrifying. Are they still here? Unknown. The data storage facility is the only active technology we've found. Everything else is preserved but dormant. If they're still here, they're not interfering with our settlement. Elena looked out at the bustling colony site. Children were playing in the silver-gold grass, their laughter echoing across the alien landscape. The first generation of humans to grow up in the Magellanic Cloud was already making the world their own. What about the other worlds? Beta Magellani 2 is being developed as our primary oceanic research station. The ocean ecosystems are incredibly complex. We're talking about evolutionary processes that have been running for hundreds of millions of years. Beta Magellani 3 is being developed as a mining and industrial center. The desert environment is hostile, but the mineral resources are extraordinary. Elena nodded. Humanity was spreading across the system, establishing the foundations for a multi-world civilization. It was ambitious, perhaps overly so, but they had little choice. The survival of human civilization depended on their ability to establish a sustainable presence in the Magellanic Cloud. Long-term projections? Optimistic. The birth rate is increasing, morale is high, and the initial resource surveys suggest we can support a much larger population. The agricultural teams think we can achieve food self-sufficiency within 2 years. The industrial teams are already producing basic manufactured goods. Elena felt a surge of pride. Humanity was not just surviving, they were thriving. The species that had fled the Milky Way in desperate haste was becoming the foundation for a new galactic civilization. What about communication with the other colonies? Quantum communication arrays are being established throughout the system. We're also working on long-range transmitters to maintain contact with any other human settlements that might be established in the galaxy. The plan is to create a network of human worlds across the Magellanic Cloud. Elena smiled. It was an ambitious vision, humanity as a multi-world, multi-system civilization spread across an entire galaxy. But they had already accomplished the impossible by crossing the void between galaxies. Anything seemed possible now. Any word from the Harmony? Dr. Chen's expression grew somber. They're still en route. Latest projections suggest they'll arrive in approximately 18 months. They're maintaining communication, but the signal is getting weaker. Distance is a factor, but there may be technical issues as well. Elena felt the familiar weight of command decisions. The Harmony and its 12,000 passengers were still lost in the void, struggling to reach safety. There was nothing she could do to help them, but she felt responsible for their fate. We'll maintain the beacon network, she said. When they arrive, we'll be ready for them. A priority communication chimed through the command center. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the orbital habitats. They're reporting unusual readings from the quantum sensors. Elena felt her stomach tighten. What kind of readings? Spatial distortions at the edge of the system. The signature is familiar. Elena's blood turned to ice. Hegemony? Negative. But it's definitely artificial. Something large is approaching the system, and it's using technology we don't recognize. Elena stared at the tactical display, watching as new sensor contacts appeared at the edge of the system. Humanity had crossed the void between galaxies to escape the hegemony, only to discover that they were not alone in the Magellanic Cloud. Alert status throughout the fleet, she ordered. And get me a direct connection to the archaeological teams at the ruins. If our predecessors left us a message, we need to know what it says. As the alarms began to sound across the human settlements, Elena looked out at the alien landscape where human children were playing under foreign stars. They had built a new home, but the universe was vast and full of mysteries. The next chapter of humanity's story was about to begin.